Hello, biohackers. Welcome in our fourth episode of Biohacking podcast. I'm thrilled to announce our today's guest, Dr. Masha, my mentor and specialist with naturopathy and hyperbaric. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here today for many reasons. But of course, because we're going to talk about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which is the number one regenerative therapy and has absolutely amazing results.
Yes, hyperbaric is a key to the super recovery. So let's go. Dr. Masha, can you please tell us how hyperbaric support our recovery, health, and cognitive functions?
Of course. First of all, let's talk about recovery.
Sure.
Recovery is very important. And I think people don't pay enough attention to recovery. Everybody is concerned about performance, whether it's athletes or somebody who's doing mostly mental work. Everybody's thinking, what about my performance? But recovery is super important because performance sort of lies on top of recovery. If you don't recover well, you will never perform well.
Very true.
So performance and recovery, two separate things, but very much interconnected. Now, we have many tools that can support recovery for athletic performance, for mental performance, for any kind of thing that we do. But hyperbaric oxygen therapy is very special because if I were to choose just one therapy that can absolutely support recovery, my first choice would always be hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Great. Okay, that sounds fascinating. Can we talk a little bit more about the science behind the hyperbaric treatment, please?
So let's talk about what is hyperbaric, right? Because I'm sure there are listeners and there are viewers who've maybe tried hyperbaric therapy, those who heard about it and those who never heard about it. So let's start with what is hyperbaric therapy. It's a therapy that is administered inside a hyperbaric chamber. Any vessel that can be pressurized. So it's a therapy under pressure with increased amount of oxygen. And the reason hyperbaric works so well is because it increases oxygen delivery to cells. And we need oxygen. I mean, think about it. How long can you survive without oxygen? 2-3 minutes before brain is dead? This is how important is oxygen. Now, what will happen if we increase the amount of oxygen that we send to cells and tissues? Then we can do more recovery, more repair, more energy will be produced inside the cell that can be used both for recovery and performance. So this is hyperbaric therapy in essence. A person goes into a hyperbaric chamber, a special vessel. They stay in there for an hour. The ambient air inside the chamber, or maybe the chamber is pressurized with oxygen, but let's talk about ambient air. The air is being pressurized, but you don't feel anything. There's no special feeling, right, under this pressure. And this pressure has all the beneficial effects on the body.
Amazing. That sounds so good. Could you tell me, Dr. Masha, please, who would benefit most from HBOT and how we can join this with kind of biohacking routine and maximize that recovery?
So let's think about an analogy. Let's say you've spent the whole day inside the building in a room that's poorly ventilated and doesn't have enough oxygen in it. I'm pretty sure when you leave that environment, you will be very tired. Most likely you're going to have a headache. You'll be absolutely annoyed at everything around you. And most likely you will not have a good night's sleep that day. Why? Because you were hypoxic. You didn't get enough oxygen. Now imagine when you give that person more oxygen, what will happen? First, you bring them to sort of the baseline where they're supposed to be. What if you give even more oxygen? You make that person a lot more efficient in how they produce energy. And we need energy for everything. Now, me sitting here talking to you, I need to constantly produce energy inside my body to move my arms, to say things, right?
Yes.
I need energy to produce hormones, neurotransmitters. All the myriad of processes that are happening inside my body need energy. When I increase that energy production, I just feel a lot better. I can perform better. I can be a happier person. So to answer your question, who will benefit from hyperbaric therapy? I think everyone would.
Amazing.
How we combine it with other biohacking tools, that's another question on its own, and we can talk about it. But let's say we take athletes, right?
Yeah.
You're an athlete yourself, and you know all the benefits of hyperbaric therapy for you as an athlete. And please answer my question, like, what benefits have you seen from using hyperbaric?
Wow, that's quite a lot of benefits. First thing, I'm more energized. Another thing, I feel less fatigue. And I'm not feeling any pains after my workouts, and that's probably the big support of the hyperbaric. So definitely my recovery, my general well-being, and just like mood, like I just find out now, yeah, that's true. The hypoxia can lower our energy, mood, and everything, all the body functions. Like oxygen is that real key to our optimal health.
And that's excellent. But I want to add one thing to it.
Sure.
Is the mental focus. So what separates a really good athlete from an average athlete? It's the mental focus, because you need to make decision in a split second. And it's not always possible. Again, maybe you had a bad night's sleep. There are many reasons why on this particular day you're not able to do that. Or in general, if you have that mental fatigue that really interferes with the performance of you as an athlete. So if you can improve that, and brain will take up the most amount of oxygen that we breathe in, it really needs a lot of oxygen. So when we give it even more oxygen, it performs a lot better. Again, if you think about you sitting in a room all day and then you go into the forest with very clean air, and you almost feel like all this oxygen is flooding your brain, I think this is the feeling inside a hyperbaric chamber and after a hyperbaric treatment, when you just, everything's so clear, and you have this ability to think a lot better. And this is equally as important. When we think about athletic performance, we always think, oh, how many push-ups can I do, or pull-ups, or can I run 3K or 5K or 10K? But a lot of it is about how well your brain works. And that depends on whether or not we're getting enough oxygen to the brain.
Oh, wow. Yes. So that's absolutely so important for our general health. So, yeah, thank you so much for that.
And not just athletes, right? Everybody will benefit.
Absolutely. Okay, brilliant. So I feel like every conversation with you, Dr. Masha, I'm learning new things. That is amazing way and to discover all the power behind the biohacking and hyperbaric treatment. So for me in my life, a very intensive time is coming. So I've got quite a lot of challenges. The first one is the Hyrox. So Hyrox is like endurance training, and is combined with running and exercise. So that requires a lot of endurance from me. But just 2 weeks after, I'm competing in a marathon. So that's going to be completely different competition, and my body will be exposed into the huge amount of oxidative stress. Can you recommend me any protocol with a hyperbaric, how I can upgrade my recovery, please?
Of course. But first I want to say, Adam, I really admire all the challenges that you put in front of yourself and how you work hard, to move towards your goals. It's absolutely amazing. And of course, you have all these wonderful tools, right, that you're sharing with your audience. And if we think about hyperbaric therapy, how it can support you, again, we need to look at the recovery portion. This is super important, but we also need to see how we can optimize performance, because you not only want to get to the day of the challenge, and for that, you need a lot of recovery, but you also need to perform well, right? Because this is why you do it. So hyperbarics can be used both for recovery and to improve performance.
Okay.
And there are different ways of applying hyperbaric therapy depending on the goal that you have. Let's say it's about performance. And let's say it's just a regular workout that you do every day towards achieving your goal of running a marathon, for example.
Yeah.
And you not only want to do well on marathon, you want to do well on your daily runs and endurance training that you do. And what you can do for that, you can do hyperbaric therapy before you go to the gym. So let's say you go to the gym at 10 a.m., which I know you don't, you go early in the morning, but let's somebody does.
Yeah.
So you can do hyperbarics, let's say at 8 or 7 in the morning to give you more energy, to sort of give yourself a little bit of advantage in the gym while you work out. And this is how you improve performance on a daily basis.
Sure.
Or you can do a session after you just came from the gym to help your body recover, so it's in a top condition the day after to go back to the gym. And the length of your sessions will vary depending on whether you do it before your workout session or after. So before the workout session, we do usually shorter sessions, like 45-minute sessions. And after the workout, they're usually longer, 60 to 90-minute sessions. The longer we stay in a hyperbaric chamber, the more recovery is stimulated. The shorter is the session. We give it like a boost of energy. We give your body a boost of energy so you can go to the gym. You can go to the gym and you can do really well there. So this is one of the strategies, right?
Yeah.
One is to perform well at the gym. Another one is to recover. The other point that I want to make, and I think it's super important for all of our listeners to understand, is the consistency, the frequency of hyperbaric sessions. Hyperbaric therapy is not a one-session therapy. It's super important to understand. It's not like I'll do one hyperbaric session and I'll run a marathon. It doesn't work this way. It's a therapy that has cumulative effect, which means that the effect of the next session builds on the effects of the previous sessions. So you need to do quite a few sessions. That's one thing, right? You can't get all the results, and you really need at least 20 sessions to see the real results. But you also want to do them as close together as possible. So not like one session a week or 2 sessions a week. That's not enough. There are no general recommendations. It's difficult to give general, but we say that at least 3 sessions a week in order for hyperbaric therapy to be effective.
Sure.
So let's say you have an event planned in 4 weeks.
Yes, in 4 weeks is the first event.
So you have an event in 4 weeks.
Yes, and I'm increasing my workload at the moment. So that's a big test for my body.
So I would concentrate on recovery more, meaning getting your sessions after the workout at least 3 times a week. However, if there is a particular day when you don't feel energetic or maybe you're tired, I would do a session before you go to the gym.
Yes, okay. That's looking forward to check all. What is so far what I find out with the hyperbaric. So when I do my morning workout, I'm going into the hyperbaric for 1 hour, and that's giving me a little bit like time as well to prepare my brain for the daily tasks. So I can just like in that environment, I feel more relaxed. My brain has more oxygen, and it's just that planning is much more easier. And probably because of that stage, like is more drive of the oxygen into the body, and all the functions are like quite hyper because of the amount of oxygen is getting into our tissue and cells.
To function on a little higher level throughout the day if you do hyperbarics in the morning. Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Especially, let's say you went to the gym and you've exercised. So you've created some stress on your body.
Yeah.
Now your body needs to deal with that stress. With the increased amount of oxygen, the whole recuperation will happen a lot faster. If we talk about professional athletes, in my opinion, and I've worked with a lot of professional athletes, those who don't do hyperbaric therapy nowadays in the modern world that we live in, it's not quite possible to recover without that increased amount of oxygen. Just because the demands of somebody who's in professional sports, my daughter was doing gymnastics professionally, so I've seen the amount of stress it does on the body. It's impossible to recover unless you do something extra, which is not just sleep and eat well, and I'm sure we'll talk about those things, but also some kind of therapy, some kind of technology that helps.
Yeah. Dr. Masha, I would like to share a little bit of my experience because I'm increasing my trainings. I'm increasing all the stress with the training and noticing that actually my body is recovering really well and I'm not getting any injuries, what is so important, especially after such a long runs and preparing for high rocks. So is a lot of that pressure on my muscles and joint bones, and I just feel fantastic. Can you explain us a little bit more on that recovery part?
Yes, and I'm glad that you're noticing that because it's very common, and I'll explain why. There's like a scientific explanation why you're not getting injuries where based on statistics, you should have been. And it's not just you, Adam. It's a lot of other athletes as well who are using hyperbaric therapy. They report the same thing. And I'll explain why is this happening. So there is a way to precondition tissue so it is stronger and it's more resilient. Can be used in sports like yourself, like I'm doing hyperbarics. I'm preventing injuries from happening because your muscle tissue is getting stronger. Your connective tissue, which has a higher probability of being injured, is stronger. So you're not getting as much muscle tears and connective tissue tears and things that predispose to injuries. You also healing from the previous injuries, because why people get injuries, the most the most common reason is it's a re-injury. So they had an injury, they didn't heal from it properly. A probability that they'll get re-injured is very high. In hyperbarics, we heal all sorts of injuries. So let's say somebody had and you hear those stories of professional athletes, like Ronaldo, who sustained, the famous football player, right?
Yeah.
Who sustained, sometimes in the United States, when I give interviews, I have to say this, Ronaldo, the famous football player, because they're, maybe not everybody knows that. Here in Europe, I think everybody, he can talk, who Ronaldo is. But anyways, so he sustained a hamstring injury, and he was told that it would take 8 weeks to heal, and he was doing hyperbarics, and he could play in like 4.5 weeks.
Wow.
It can speed up the recovery, and it can help person recover a lot faster. Once you've recovered, much less probability you'll get re-injured. But also make the tissue stronger. But the interesting part, it's not only true for somebody who's doing sports.
Okay.
So let's say somebody is scheduled to have a surgery. Not an emergency surgery, but a scheduled, programmed surgery, right? They can do hyperbarics to make their tissues stronger. So when they have the surgery, they recover a lot faster from it. But what is surgery? It's type of an injury, right? Hyperbarics can precondition the body. So muscle tissue is stronger, connective tissue is stronger. Blood vessels are much stronger, so they will heal a lot faster. Because hyperbarics, besides giving us more oxygen, it makes us produce more collagen. Like there are many processes that are happening because of that increased oxygen. So people can do a set of hyperbaric treatments before the surgery. All the reports I hear after that is the surgeons saying, I don't know what you did, but you're recovering so well and less chance of complications. So let's circle it back to athletes, right?
Sure.
Because we started with athletes. Same here. Hyperbarics, that's why I said it's my number one choice of therapy, because it does so many beautiful things. And it helps people heal from the injury they've had and prevent that future injury. And there are many stories of athletes who've been using hyperbarics for a long time. And if you look at their career, and if you look at the injuries that they've had, these people statistically have a lot less injuries than those who do not use hyperbaric therapy.
Yes, yes. We can notice that football players, they play much longer. And actually, like Robert Lewandowski, he's our top star in Poland. Basically, he's still playing in Barcelona and doing amazing. He's one of the best seasons, and he's a fan of the hyperbaric chamber. So that can show how effective this treatment is.
Yeah, especially among athletes for many reasons, because they have doctors who oversee their therapy, so they can recommend hyperbaric therapy. Also, if somebody is doing it professionally, chances are they have access again to those therapies through the gyms and places like that. But it doesn't mean that hyperbarics is only for professional athletes. No way. Like, I'm not even an amateur athlete. Like, I work out 3 times a week. But every time I work out, I get home and I get into a hyperbaric chamber.
Okay.
Because I want to heal after I've just, put some stress on my body. It will help me to grow bone mass better. It will help me to improve my muscle mass, but mostly to make sure to prevent those injuries that can happen, especially if you move into a certain age, which is a lot more common.
Yes, yes. So that is amazing key to that optimal health. So important in modern world, because we are exposed into the loads of outside stress, I would call it, and yes, and then the processed food. So how hyperbaric can recover, and is hyperbaric taking a role as kind of detoxification for the body in this case?
I wouldn't say hyperbaric or HBOT. We call it HBOT for hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I wouldn't say it's number one detox tool. I mean, there are better tools to detox, like infrared sauna or red light therapy blankets and things like that, supplements. However, it can support detoxification process, but I wouldn't use it as the only tool for detoxification. Yet, it stimulates production of glutathione, which is our number one antioxidant in the body that helps us detoxify. So hyperbarics is used in detox, but not just hyperbarics. It has to be integrated with other therapies.
Sure. Okay. All sounds amazing. Thank you so much for all your knowledge, Dr. Masha. And do we have any tips to our listeners? Maybe if they would like to try some hyperbaric treatment as a first time, would you recommend anything? How we can prepare our body? Is about hydration or maybe some kind of routine before the treatment?
So I think my number one advice is always do hyperbaric therapy at the facility that received training. So people at the facility where you go should receive training in hyperbaric therapy. I teach hyperbarics to other practitioners. I train clinics how to incorporate. And I can see that there's a big difference in the experience, especially if you're doing it for the first time. So when you go to the clinic, you need to make sure that the person who will introduce you to hyperbaric therapy knows how to do it correctly. That there are ways to prevent side effects from hyperbaric. There are very few, but still, you need to make sure you know how to equalize pressure in the ears. A person needs to be comfortable in their hyperbaric chamber. So even though hyperbaric therapy can be used as wellness therapy, and people can put hyperbaric chambers in their homes, it doesn't mean that people who provide hyperbaric therapy can do this without proper training. So this is my pet peeve, and I think this is super important. And of course, a person like that will explain, yes, you need to be hydrated. And the reason you mentioned it, because you, Adam, received that training in hyperbaric therapy. Yes, you need to know how to equalize pressure in the ears and make sure you're not congested. Right? And that you don't come with a flu or fever and things like that. And there are other ways to increase the effectiveness of hyperbaric therapy. I actually have a really good, like a printout, like a little file that I give to my patients that I can share with your audience. So we'll leave a link in the description that people can download, which gives you tips on how to increase effectiveness of hyperbaric treatments, because you can get a lot more out of hyperbaric session if you follow like 5 simple strategies that I list there.
Amazing. Yes, that sounds really good. And thank you so much, Dr. Masha, for all the knowledge. And thank you guys for listening us. I hope you find out a lot of answers from today's episode.
And I hope that after listening to this episode, you might have a little interest and go search for a facility and try hyperbaric treatments. They're available at Adams Clinic. If you're in Manchester, I think that's a good place to try it.
The best.
Yes, absolutely. Because you need to make sure that a person who's a provider,
of course,
knows what they're doing. I think this is super important.
Yes.